Well, if we're all in agreement, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. The meeting would normally be scheduled to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag anywhere visible? No, we don't. Well, let's imagine the flag is with us. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, then. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America,
and
to the republic
for
which
which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jennifer, will you call the roll?
Chair Albo,
Here.
Vice Chair Hunter Chang,
Here.
Commissioner Eugene Ramirez,
Present.
Commissioner Peter Leffler, Commissioner Jeff Buzzell,
here,
alternate Dr. James Lynn.
All right.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The agenda was posted 72 hours prior to the meeting at the following locations: City Hall, the Crowell Public Library, and the Recreation Department, in addition to being posted on the city's website. Are there written communications or public writings to be distributed? I believe we have received 2 written communications that were distributed to the commissioners. Am I correct, Jennifer?
There was a letter from residents that was distributed to the commissioners with the agenda, but I don't have any knowledge of the second one that you're referring to.
The second item had to do with signage, and I believe that Director Throne at least received a copy. Is that true?
Yes, that's true, Chair Bogue. And I will be actually speaking of it during my director's report.
All right. So we've addressed that. Now, with regard to the letter itself that was distributed to the commissioners, it was also addressed to the members of the City Council. I have not received any guidance from the City Council directly with regard to that letter. However, I believe that the request will need to be considered not only by this commission at a point either later in the evening or in the future, but also will need to be considered by the Planning Commission in conjunction with their plan to expand the walkability and desirability of the Huntington Drive business area. So I'm hoping if Jennifer, if you don't have that letter, let me know, and I will forward a copy to you because I think it came with the agenda. And if it didn't, we need to get a copy into the hands of
I'll request a copy from Director Throne.
Okay, great. You'll take care of that then?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any public comments having to do with any issues which are not specifically being addressed on the agenda this evening? If so, would you unmute yourself and let us know? I don't see any evidence that there's a public comment. Do you, Jennifer?
No, we don't have any raised hands, and I haven't received any emails.
All right, thank you. Are there any Members of the commission who wish to inform the public of any meetings or conferences they have attended. If not, then we should move on to the first order of business this evening, which is the reorganization of the Public Safety Commission. We will be selecting a new chair and vice chair to become effective this evening. Is there a nomination for a new chair?
I nominate Vice Chair Hunter Chang.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Chang, are you willing to accept if elected? Your microphone is turned off. Having been moved and seconded, I'm going to call for a vote. Those in favor of the election of Hunter Chang as the chairman of the Public Safety Commission, please raise your hand so we can see it. 2, 3. Okay, I believe that the majority has voted in favor.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, Chair.
Therefore, we have a new chair. I believe it is appropriate at this time for me to turn over the gavel to the new chair, who will oversee the election of the new vice chair and conduct the remainder of this evening's meeting.
Okay.
Congratulations, Chair Chang. Looking forward to working with you.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. I don't know.
Okay, a
Okay,
very
I'm
narrow
logged in.
base.
You can hear me okay? Maybe I should call in through the audio number. I don't know why my, let me just try this.
It's working great.
Okay. Well, thank you, Al, for your leadership of the commission since we've started. You've led us through, I guess, we've all been trying to work through what the commission should be about, and you have led us through this very well. So I hope I can continue that. And with that, I'd like to nominate a vice chair. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Buzzell.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Welcome, Commissioner Buzzell as the vice chair. We have also in the past had the commissioners assigned to the 3 departments. And that's just so that we can work on a more, I guess, smaller level. And I think at this time, we'll probably keep those same positions. If you recall, I believe Commissioner Buzzell, Vice Chair Buzzell, and myself were assigned to the police department. And Commissioner Ramirez and Commissioner Loeffler were assigned to the fire department.
Public Works.
Public Works. Okay, so then I guess Commissioner Bo and alternate Lynn would be the fire department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll keep that for now. Okay, moving on. Why don't we go into the department reports? We'll start with Chief and Control with the police report.
Good evening, Chair Chang and Commission. You read the report. There's only a couple items that I wanted to highlight. Number one is we've been able to see a slight decrease in crime, and that is primarily for burglaries, less burglaries, and actually a decrease of about 12 larcenies or thefts. A lot of extra patrol by the officers, some information going out. And again, those are mostly package thefts and thefts of gardening equipment. In your packet, there is a graph that my assistant Vanessa Alvarez put together that I think really shows where we are on crime. Also, it has a good one dealing with traffic. And there's a good comparison in the graph also. We're working diligently to try and reduce it. I've made a contact with, through a survey with Amazon to find out about putting Amazon package lockers at city facilities. And I'll be doing a follow-up this week to determine where we're at on that. It's a little difficult to follow up because they don't provide a person. It's all online. So I'll see what we can do in that regard. The other issue is I want to point out that we're still moving forward in these times of chaos with hiring. We have one person who is a lateral from Pasadena City College, police officer. He is just about done with his background. I should be talking to him and reviewing his background within the next week. And we have two additional people, one of them one of our cadets who is beginning backgrounds. And we're looking forward to her successfully going through the hiring process and becoming a police officer. She'll have to become go through the academy first as a recruit. That will give us our sworn positions to 30 that were temporarily authorized. And we are expecting one retirement and another possible transfer from the department to another agency in Southern California. The other item that is very important is we have our 22 flock safety cameras up and running within the city. We've been testing them the past week. We have had a couple of incidents that we are trying to use the cameras to track vehicles. If we're able to get vehicle information, we're asking our officers to be extra diligent in their interviews of victims and witnesses about vehicle information. And hopefully we'll start receiving some tips and be able to use information gathered from the flock cameras to help us solve crime. So those things we're very excited about. And beyond that, the traffic issues within the city, we are writing, we've written about 116 tickets, 15 moving citations, and 15 for equipment so far. Just in this month, we've ran a special task force of officers working overtime to handle speeders on our primary streets, especially Sierra Madre and San Marino, where we changed the speed limit. I wrote one myself on Sierra Madre the other day. And traffic collisions, we still are up on injury traffic collisions, but they're down from last year. I'm sorry, from last month. That concludes my report. If you have any further questions, I'm available.
Chief, I have a comment to make. My neighbor's parents had their house broken into at the end of a pursuit out of Alhambra, and the suspect came through the house. I was able to see the Ring doorbell video of all the San Marino, Alhambra, and other officers on the street taking the suspect into custody. Job well done. My neighbor and his parents were very obviously thankful that, when the father of my neighbor opened the door and saw all of you there, and then all of a sudden the suspect comes behind him, he didn't even realize he was in the house until at that moment, yet he had broken all these French doors to gain entry. So job well done, no one injured, and it all turned out well. So my neighbor was very appreciative.
Thank you. Yeah, he took a bathrobe and tried to walk out wearing the bathrobe, and the keen eye of the officers that responded were able to noticed that that just wasn't the right guy in the right bathrobe and took him into custody.
It's a good thing
Well
you-
done.
Wow.
Uh,
Sure.
Chair?
Okay.
May I ask
Thank-
a quick question? Chief Encounter, can you remind us where the cameras are installed?
Well, we are not necessarily releasing that info right now. We
Okay,
want people to see, but they're mounted on streetlights.
okay,
And
and,
also, we do have cameras that are mounted on flock safety poles. And that information has been provided to some other people, and those are at Palomar and Huntington, and then also up on California, the 2700 block. And the others are scattered throughout the city at the primary ingress and egress routes.
thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Great. Any other comments for Chief and Control? Okay. With that, then why don't we proceed to Chief Rada with the Fire Department report?
Good evening, Commissioners. I've provided the written report that you have in your packet. I did want to highlight a couple things. The coronavirus, I think we all thought it would be waning, but it seems to be a considerable amount of my personal work and still the work of the department running the EOC, developing recovery policies for our city, answering general questions, securing PPE, and ensuring we're still going to get reimbursed for response. So it's a considerable amount of our effort, and Captain Sutliff working his days off shift, assisting at the EOC has really been a big help with that. We started our brush inspections and are partway through that. And this will be the second year of an evaluation of our high fire severity zone to see if we want to make changes there. We survived the 4th of July with no major fires in our city, but we did respond to a number of incidents in adjacent cities. And I knock on wood, we've kept the fireworks for the most part at bay and within our city. I think probably because of the great work of our police department. The one area I did want to highlight was personnel. So this past week, we lost the third of 3 recent hire firefighter paramedics, and all 3 were really outstanding employees. They were at the top of our list, our recruitment list, and they were all recruited by larger municipal departments nearby. Los Angeles County, Orange County were the 2 departments that our folks went to. We have 2 more that are actively being recruited by the other departments, and we have a retirement that's pending. So I bring this to you. It's a concerning trend. I don't have a full report on it yet, but it is something I know I'm going to look and see if there's potentially some solutions for us, because we are losing some of our better employees right now. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Any questions for Chief Rada?
I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, lots of concern about losing our top employees, not only fire department, but police department as well. Is there any way that the city is able to offer incentives to keep them from leaving, or is the compensation package being offered by the other agencies such that we can't even compete? And is this going to be a continuing problem? And is there any way, if they're leaving within a year or 2, is there any way we could recoup the cost of training them, or are these all tenured people where they've been here for several years?
The last 3 employees that I discussed have all been less than 2 years. So that's one of the questions I think that begs to be answered is there something we can do to recover costs or something of that nature? The second item is our employees are leaving for a variety of reasons, increased promotability because there's more positions other places, diversity of work. But clearly one of the areas that is and has been mentioned by our employees is the compensation package. We actually rank pretty well with respect to adjacent jurisdictions in terms of salary, but our pension really does not compare with those same agencies. So I'm not prepared to provide specifics tonight because I just haven't done the research yet. But that is something I'm going to look at to see if we're doing everything we can to retain employees.
I'm just curious, I know, and Chief Contra could probably address this better, but I remember LAPD had a similar situation a few years ago where a lot of their officers were leaving to smaller agencies or other agencies. And I thought it was built into their employment contract. If they left within 2 years or so, the agency could seek to recoup the cost of training in an attempt to kind of prevent them from leaving until they had been there for a period of time. So I don't know if that was ever effective or not, Chief, but I wonder, this is a topic to discuss.
Yeah, I was with the department at that time, and there was a court ruling that said that was not enforceable. So departments have stopped doing that. With the police department, some of the same issues as a fire department apply. One of the officers that's going through backgrounds or has finished backgrounds and probably fairly close to getting a hire date is going to a brand new police department, as another one of our officers did. The compensation package is significant. The pay is, this one officer started out as 17% more.
Wow.
It's in a different county.
Is that Marietta?
Space. So there's a lot of things that we can't compete with. But we do have both newer officers with 3 years or more, and then officers that are probably with 8 to 15 years leaving. And they are going again for promotability, different work experience options. Sometimes it is less drive time to work. Some of the other things are, we want to look at what special income level or non-income issues or benefits issues can we do for the officers? Are there more opportunities to do or be involved with different groups? Is there a way of a feeling of respect? Is there a feeling of support? A lot of things that we were talking about. I have a meeting coming up with the Police Officers Association to get a little more information. And Chief Rueda and I are both working together on trying to come up with solutions, but also some opportunities for our employees.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Rueda? Jennifer, can you see my Zoom request? My circle's still spinning on my computer. I don't know if it's stuck in limbo.
To join the meeting or?
Yeah, it says waiting for host to start the meeting. This is on my laptop. For some reason, I can't log in through that.
No, I don't show anything waiting room.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Okay, no questions. We'll move on to Director Throne of Public Works.
Thank you, Chair Chang, and it's nice to have Mr. Chang as chair again. He and I worked together at the Traffic Safety Committee before it became the Public Safety Commission. So it's great to have you back, Chair.
Thank you.
You do have a copy of my report. It's attachment 4-1 to your agenda. I do want to just speak of two things. One is we're trying a little traffic calming experiment at the Starbucks area. We received some requests from residents in that area and our own basic observations that there are a lot of cars and a lot of bicycles and a lot of pedestrians. And so what we wanted to do was follow a similar path that some of the local cities nearby us, city of LA, Pasadena, in putting up some sort of signage just to remind people that during these days there are a lot more folks
After he
actually
started.
on the road. And so we got a great echo there from Chief. It's awesome. We did put some signs up. I'm going to use a very old school way of showing you a picture inside a picture. There we go. There we. I don't know. It's not going to work very well. Anyway, if you go down to Starbucks, you'll see these yellow signs that say caution. They're the ones that are shown in your packet. We're gonna experiment with this for about a week and see how it goes. We've received some really good feedback from both pros and cons as to those kinds of signs. They're not meant to be overly attractive because generally speaking, you do want to have signs to have the same sort of look as all of the other traffic signs we have in the city. So we're going to try this out for a week, and then at your next meeting, I'll report back as to what we learned and whether or not it's this kind of thing we want to deploy into other areas of town. We do have some very narrow streets, and so putting these A-frame signs in the center of the street then becomes a traffic hazard all by itself. So, but then putting them alongside of the street, then it just becomes another sign that you ignore. So we figured Starbucks is a good location because you can very readily, you stand at the clock and look up Ridgeway there, you'll see the signs and they jump out at you. The other thing is if you were on the call for Director Cervantes, he was talking about code enforcement and discussing the GoGov app. What Public Works has actually done over the last several weeks is we actually took it over from him, and it is actually now more of a Public Works reporting app than a code enforcement app. So if you have the GoGov app and you open it up and you want to report an issue, you'll see that there's a section for code enforcement and a section for Public Works. So we did a soft opening on this for about the last 2 weeks. We wanted to see how it was going to work internally. It seems to be working fine inside. So I would ask that if the commissioners are out and about in the next couple of days, if you see something that's broken, please report it so that we can keep track and I can get feedback from you at your next commission meeting as to your experience and what we need to do to improve on that. Outside of that, your Lacey Park restroom is under real construction now. I'm very excited. And we're in the process of now grinding up the rest of the streets in town so that we can resurface them. And that concludes the director's report. Chair Chang, I believe you are muted.
Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Director Throne. Any questions from the commissioners?
Chair, we did have a resident that wanted to speak regarding the last report, Chief Rueda's report.
Okay. Is the resident on?
Yes, it's the Gutierrez, 2235 Ridgeway. Hello.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My reasoning to be in this meeting today is because I came out in my front yard and I noticed these signs and I was very disappointed One, no one told me about these signs, and it's very rare since I've been living here now for quite a while that at least there's a courtesy of letting me know that there's going to be signs on top of the lawn that I maintain. I was very upset about that. The aesthetic look of the signs for sure is not pretty. The way the signs are placed, it really doesn't make sense to me because one of them is right next to a pole. So on one way you could see the whole sign, but on the other way you can't because the pole is there. So I don't know if you could see, maybe I have a better, this is the sign right here. Do you see the pole? So when you drive the opposite way, you really can't see because that pole is there, the light pole. And I didn't take a picture of the other one, but the other one, it's actually like this. Like when you turn onto Huntington to Ridgeway, the actual sign is set like this, which I would think it would make sense that when people go into turning from Huntington to Ridgeway, they could see the sign like this. So that's another thing, it makes no sense to me. Right across the street, there's enough concrete to put up the sign, which is in the corner where Ridgeway, and then there's the alley. I thought that was another position. Not to mention that the resident that complained about the problem was on Cumberland, not Ridgeway. So I know for a fact that I don't see many speeders. It's really hard to speed during the time where there's on Ridgeway two cars parking on each side. Then you have the driveway of going into Starbucks. Then you have the alley, and then you have Ridgeway, which turns. And then once you turn right onto Cumberland, there's this big dip. So I think the concern was actually Cumberland more going towards Winston when it came to the speeding. So that's, I'm not against the signs totally. I am against taking away from the aesthetic look of this beautiful city, which is very country style look with the landscape. And like I said, I maintain my grass, and it's very disappointing that they put it on top of my grass. So that area will be dry. And my understanding is they're going to put a chain to make sure that it's safe. And I'm just wondering, from what I hear, and this is just through third party, is that it was easier for the individuals who put these signs for them to see it from the city. And I hope that's not true, because it should be where it's more visible for the purpose of the conclusion of the speeding, which again, with COVID, nobody's really out driving right now. I think this is a better test once we go back to normal to really realize, the traffic. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. And I think Director Throne had mentioned that these projects are still under study analysis, and your comments are noted, Director Throne. You note Ms. Gutierrez's comments, and I don't know if you want to address them now or if you want to come back at a later meeting.
I'm aware that my staff has, I believe, talked to Ms. Gutierrez, I think on site and maybe through email or by telephone. And we didn't have many options in order to test this out. To place a sign, we were having limited ability to install a new sign, and I did not want to place a new sign installation and go through that effort only to move it about. Where we placed it was where it, for our judgment, was efficient and easily removable after this week's worth of experimentation. So I certainly appreciate Ms. Gutierrez. I do know I went out there, I took a look at it. We won't leave it there after this week, because we will need to pull all of our stuff out and take a look at what we did and how, whether or not it was effective. She is right that there are less cars, but then because there are more people, I know experience that as a driver, you are not used to having so many people on the streets. And so we kind of get into a scenario where we can go with a massive amount of sign pollution and install something, then remove it, or try something temporary, see if we get the results, see if we get one kind of results or another, and then decide whether or not to make a permanent installation there for that particular area, or look at other areas. So this is really a very short-term experiment that I will report back to the commission at your next meeting in August.
I appreciate your explanation, but I'm still concerned that the call from the resident was about speeding on Cumberland. And I feel that that call was used to put signs right here on Ridgeway. No one called about Ridgeway. They called about Cumberland, and nothing was done on Cumberland regarding the speed. And that's the concern of the resident. So that threw me off. So that's my point. I hope you do something for that resident on Cumberland. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Any other comments on Director Throne's report?
We have several more comments in the group chat.
Okay.
Krista Lacone says, I agree with Ms. Gutierrez. I am also a neighbor. Melinda Minkler says the signs need to be on Cumberland between Winston and Ridgeway. The high-speed traffic is people avoiding Huntington, nothing to do with Starbucks. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, if there's no other comments, we'll move on to new business and minutes from the last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I will move that we adopt the minutes from the last meeting, have them moved into the record.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ramirez. And a second?
Second?
Second, Commissioner Bo?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on, San Marino Fire Department Annual Report. Chief Ferreira, I know I received mine in the mail. Very nicely done. Do you have any comments on that?
Commissioner, thank you. I wanted to present this to you without going into a tremendous amount of detail. I'm sure you've read it, but it really is an opportunity for the department to showcase the good work of the department. It really does highlight the accomplishments of all of our firefighters and paramedics. And I find when I arrived here, like many jurisdictions and my experience in the fire service, beyond the four walls here, the fire department is not well understood in terms of work, schedules, how things are managed, how we actually measure ourselves, and what do we get for our money. And here the residents pay a subsidy for what I consider premium service. So this was an opportunity for me to share that I believe they are getting premium service. And the metrics that I've provided in the report are the standard metrics that we use in the National Fire Service. They're actually published by the National Fire Protection Association, so that when one goes around to look at department's performance, they can actually see how a department compares against others and what you're getting for your money. So without taking too much time, I wanted to share the document with you and thank Jennifer for her hard work. And I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Chief Rueda on the annual report? And again, thank you for that report, Chief Rueda and Jennifer. We are getting premium service, and let's keep that up.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We're gonna, for the next few items, we're gonna go through the budget for the different departments, and I understand that it's pretty much been approved by council, but we've been asked to look at the budget and see if we have any comments, perhaps for this year or maybe next year, that we can talk about. So with that, why don't we start with Chief and Control with the police 2021 budget.
Actually, if I might, Chair Chang, walk you through what you have in front of you, and then perhaps then jump in with the chiefs so that
Okay.
you get a sense, because there are a lot of pages, and we apologize for all the reading material there. What you have for each department, police, fire, public works, is their authorized positions, their organization chart, their operational expenses for this current fiscal year, a description about the department and their operating metrics and their goals for last year, and their accomplishments for last year, and then what their objectives are for this year. And then you have, after that, you have, and it's going to be on page 7-31, 7-30 and 7-31, you have the capital equipment budget for this fiscal year with descriptors, description pages of each of the.
Just for a second. I don't think we have any of the material you're talking about.
It should
It's
be
in your
the
agenda.
packet. If you keep scrolling down.
Well, I don't have a packet is the problem.
Oh,
And I emailed Jennifer, and I don't know where the packet is supposed to be, but could you refer to, are you referring to page 35 in the original budget presentation, Michael?
Well, I don't have the budget. I don't have that budget. I only have the excerpts that I included in your packet. I do not have the full budget.
Okay.
If you can get on the city website, Al, and it's there under the Public Safety Commission agenda,
It's
It's,
it's there.
page 74 of 128.
Great, thank you. I'll go there now.
So after the capital equipment requests, and you have the a detail sheet for each of those items, then in your packet on page 7-49, which is not the same ones that you might have, Commissioner Bogue, then you have the capital improvement projects that are slated for this fiscal year. And finally, at the end, you just have just the summary pages of the 5-year capital equipment and improvement plan, just an explanation as to how it was developed and what it contains. So then at this point, that is like the overall synopsis of all of the information you have for agenda item number 7.
thank you for that summary, Michael. So I guess why don't we just go through and if we see if we have any questions by department, and shall we do it that way, commissioners?
That's fine.
Okay, so we'll start with Chief Rueda. I'm sorry, actually, it should, okay. According to agenda, it's Chief and Control.
So if I'm correct, that starts on page 51, right?
Let's see, in the packet, yeah.
No, it doesn't. It starts
No,
on
it's
page,
even-
I guess, 48.
45 I see here.
Okay.
The Acrobat, page 45.
Chief Incontro, I have a question, if I may. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
On your organization chart, which is marked 7-4, and I think it is page 48 of the presentation.
Yes, sir.
a detective team and 4 other teams. Would you just briefly share what your staff scheduling is? In other words, I'm assuming that you have some people on in the morning and some at night, and are they organized by teams? So is it?
Yes.
How does that work?
For detectives, they primarily work a 410, and we have coverage Monday through Thursday, Tuesday through Friday. So we always have a detective available for response. And then the patrol teams 1, 2, 3, and 4. The odd teams are, they work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then the other teams work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And they work from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the other 2 teams work Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And because of the number of hours they work, a number of officers work on what we call a payback on Sundays. So they have to make up a certain number of hours in each 28-day period. And with that, they will make it up on those Sundays, so we have adequate staffing. 3 officers and a sergeant on Sundays on both those shifts.
Thank you.
Chief, question.
You also
Go ahead, Al.
Enforcement officers, do we have such a thing?
I couldn't understand parking enforcement.
Yeah, do we have a parking enforcement officer or 2 or?
We are authorized for 2 parking enforcement officers and 2 cadets for a total of 4. We currently only have 1 cadet, and that cadet is going through testing. We have 2 applicants for cadet that are going through testing. The other cadet, I'm sorry, I didn't finish my thought. The cadet that's going through testing is the testing for police officer. We are going to work with HR and eliminate the parking enforcement officer and make those into cadet positions also, with the added responsibility for all 4 to cover parking enforcement. With the COVID response, our parking citations have dropped off considerably. They work primarily during the day, the cadets will. And so they don't do the overnight parking enforcement. And we have suspended that at least through July 31st at this time.
Is that a Monday through Friday thing?
The cadets, yes, they generally will work based upon their school schedule. Each cadet is required to go to attend school and maintain a C average.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, is the COVID-19, you just mentioned it, has it impacted your budget such that these numbers may change? It also may apply to the fire department of public works. How much has it impacted the operations of your budget?
Funding for the officers has not. We have had to make special requests for, we changed our uniforms. We purchased different supplies to sanitize the station. We've had some other costs related to that. We are submitting that to the state and to possibly FEMA for reimbursement at the appropriate time. The overall, it hasn't impacted us financially because we also had fewer officers. We've had fewer expenses because of it. So I think it will be fairly even, but then again, we believe we'll be reimbursed by either the state or the feds.
Good, thank you.
Chief, may I ask a couple of more questions, please? This is Al Bode.
Yes, sir.
On the detail page, which is 2 more pages in, I believe. The place, it's page 50 of the presentation, and at the bottom it says 7-6.
Yes, sir.
This, the way the budget's been prepared, every budget in the city budget has this line called other contract services, which in every case amounts to something different. And because the number is so large, in the case of the police department, can you give us just a rough idea what that is?
Well, the biggest number in there, well over $100,000, is Pasadena Humane. That went up considerably this year, and that is where our biggest expenses are. Then other contract services, that's pretty much what the biggest expense was this year, was paying for the Humane Society. We also had increases in crossing guards, and the other parts of contract services are maintenance and repairs of different systems, of different equipment that we use, and then that's primarily what we have in there.
So it's basically outside contracted services, right? Which
Yes,
is
sir.
of course what it says it is, but
Yes.
okay. On the next page, there is an item of other contract services, and it says CAD RMS. I don't do real well with acronyms. What does CAD RMS mean?
CAD RMS is our computer aided dispatch records management system. So when someone calls the police department, our dispatch, our computer aided dispatch, will identify where they're at. We're able to put information into the computer. We're able to identify the type of call and send an officer, and then record what the outcome is of it. And then the records management system is when we do an incident report, a crime report, an arrest report, and we maintain that information. It also has a geo file of the city. We went with Mark 43, which is a new CAD RMS system. We had for a long time West Covina Services, and we were paying, as you can tell in the budget, approximately $90,000 or more. Last year, we paid a little bit more to help us pay for a transition to a system that now is providing us a much better service, or will provide us much better service, and at a reduced rate of about $40,000. The money that's used to fund this is from the COPS fund. It's a state fund to pay for law enforcement related equipment that is frontline. So CAD RMS is a frontline system because it directly aids patrol officers and officers in their duties. This will free up some additional funding for us to pay for other frontline related equipment or programs that we see fit over the next year. And it's been very beneficial to us. Other agencies in the area are going to this company, as others throughout the state and across the country. So we're very excited about starting up this new system at a much reduced cost.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? For the police budget?
I do have one more question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Later in the presentation, someplace, there's an indication of the number of vehicles that we have in the city. And do you know off the top of your head, Chief, how many vehicles you have? I know you're planning to replace some.
Give me 1 second as I count. I think I have 15 vehicles. Is that right, Michael?
It sounds about right.
And you're replacing 6, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on the police budget? Okay. Hearing none, why don't we move on to fire, Chief Roida?
What you have before you is the fire department's budget. It was, other than the capital request we received, the balance of our budget, our day-to-day operating budget remained consistent with just a few changes that were requested. Any questions?
Yes, me again. Chief, you have shifts A, B, and C. Would you remind us how the shifts work in the fire department?
So we have a mandate to provide 24/7, 365 coverage. So in order to do that, we've here in San Marino, well before I got here, adopted a 4896 schedule that allows for a work week of 56 hours for each of the firefighters. And each of those shifts is labeled A, B, and C. That schedule is consistent with most of the fire departments here in the San Gabriel Valley, which allows for training and consistent personnel during incidents. That means basically a firefighter arrives here for shift duty 0700 in the morning and is here on duty for 48 hours and then is home for 96 hours and then returns for his 48-hour shift. It averages out at about 10 shifts a month. And as I said, 56-hour week.
Thank you. I was also trying to be sure I understood. I'm going to ask the same question about vehicles. I know you've got the two engines, 2 EMT vehicles, but you have 2 or 3 other vehicles, don't you?
We have the frontline engine and ambulance.
Right.
We have a reserve engine and ambulance.
Right.
And we have 3 staff vehicles.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Rueda? Okay, before we move on, I think we're supposed to receive and file this report. Do we need a motion to do that?
Can we go through it first?
Sure.
Well, you have to do them individually, that's what you're saying, huh?
Yeah.
I move we receive and file both the police and the fire reports.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Al and Jeff.
Thanks.
Okay.
Sure.
Any other questions on the fire budget? Okay. Last but not least, Director Throne, Parks and Rec.
Well, thank you, Chair Chang. I do want to go over a couple things. I've got I have more moving pieces than the chiefs do. So if you'll indulge me for a little bit, one of the things that we looked at is every year when I look at my budget, I see what we've expensed and where we can cut from things that we're doing and the items that we are no longer doing. And so the prior budget, or the budget we just got out of, we had some significant decreases because we got out of certain businesses, such as like the business of placing concrete. We shifted that over into our capital program, and so now we have a multi-year contractor who does concrete work for us. One of the things that in our operations budget we're not able to shift is the cost of water. And so the primary difference in the Parks and Public Works budget in the services and supplies is the cost of water. We were expending a lot more water, the cost of a lot more water than what we had budgeted for. And so in order to keep our Lacey Park and our park medians in very good health, nice and green, especially this time of year, we have to water a lot. And so I looked at the other things that we could cut expenses on. We made trimmings here and there. We pay a lot of regulatory fees for all of the work that we do in running a fuel island. We pay exorbitant fees to the state and county because we run stationary generators for emergency power. We pay exorbitant fees to the state and county. And so those are like the non-truly operational things where you would be doing something and being able to see it. I did want to mention that the department this year has 2 objectives that it's set for itself. We're going to be doing a pavement condition an update. We do this every 2 years, and we update our pavement plan, and we bring that to the council for their review and concurrence. We're in the 3rd year of our 2018/2019 plan, and the work we've done in the last 3 years should alter what streets we look at in the future to do resurfacing. So it's really an updating that particular document and making sure that some streets that are in good shape are still in enough good shape for the repair work that's anticipated. Other streets, if they've aged out much quicker than we thought in 2018, we can move them forward in the list. One of the other objectives we have for this fiscal year is to connect our emergency generator to the rest of Chief and Contro's police department and all of the public works department. Our facilities are not connected to the emergency generator, so when the power is out, we have no way of accessing the computer system, it's sort of problematic. We can't even open and close the gates into City Hall. We have to leave them open. So we're going to be working a project to link that all together into our generator. And then the City Council has charged me with a little project to renovate the San Marino Center into a state-of-the-art community center. And that's something that they'll be talking about this Wednesday evening, talking specifically about an implementation plan and how to engage the community and what sort of schedule does that look like. So if you can zoom into Wednesday night's meeting, it should be very interesting. There are several divisions in Public Works. There's admin, there's fleet, there's streets, there's sewer, there's parks, there's grounds, and then there's building maintenance. And to answer Chair Bogue's question, I have the balance of the fleet from the 2 chiefs. So I have probably about 30 pieces of rolling stock and assorted engines that you have to tow around. One of the things that is in our fleet condition survey that we presented to the council at the same time we presented them with the capital improvement program this past March. And unfortunately, it was going to be presented to you at your meeting but the world ended just before your meeting. So I was unable to get you to weigh in on that. It was something I had been looking forward for the commission to see because it's quite an amount of work. I'm planning this year to take forward to the council probably a handful, if not close to 6 or 8 pieces of rolling stock that we're looking to retire and not replace because we don't get the utilization out of them or they're just too old. And they're really no longer necessary because we don't do that sort of work anymore. So, and that's something that actually then, after your discussion about the operating budgets, if you want to roll into the equipment purchases and the capital program, then that's a perfect opening for that, Chair Chang. That concludes the Public Works Department.
Yes, I do have a question. May I, Chair? Chair Chang, you're muted. Your microphone's, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know why it goes mute on me. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Director Throne, on your summary in the second page of your Parks and Public Works commentary, of course, you listed a schedule of operating metrics, and the operating metrics indicated we have a fleet of 65 vehicles, which of course was what I was trying to figure out is where they are and who has them. But what struck me particularly was the percentage of hours of service per month, which has been 20%, and you're now predicting, expecting for this year it'll be 18. Do you anticipate that that will continue at that level, or will the replacements that you are planning on making likely reduce that percentage of equipment out of service at any time?
It certainly will. The retirements, because we don't use the equipment, when we need the equipment, it has to go into the shop to be worked on because it sits and it gets old.
Yeah.
So that will help improve our rating as to what's out of service. The primary driver is Contro's patrol cars, which for a while were spending more time in the shop than they were on the road. And so with the replacement of 6 units all at once, now all of a sudden we're into a 5-year period of just doing routine tire changes and oil changes and fixing any minor things that break. The repairs that we're having to make to the chief's vehicles are those that take them out of service for a significant amount of time. When you lose an entire rear axle on a patrol vehicle, you just don't keep one in stock. And so that unit is out of service for a while. As they get older, it becomes more difficult to find parts for them. And when you do find them, you're paying a premium or you're having to wait time. And time is really the premium that we encounter. Very fortunately, we've got a very dedicated staff. And if you've ever watched the Indy 500 or any good stock car race, watch the guys come into the pit and watch them change a tire. I've watched our guys change tires on a patrol car, and it's in that class of how quick. And so that's the kind of thing we will continue to do because it's cost effective and time efficient for us to do it. But the major things like blown engines and having to replace an engine, transmission, drivetrain, brakes 4 ways around, major body work or whatever, that work will not have to be done because the units are going to be brand new. And I'm going to have the chief sign security deposit on them so that when he returns them, after each time he rents them, you know, I can recover some of the cost that we incur there.
Thank you for that very complete answer. I've just got 2 or 3 other questions, and as you might guess, most of them have to do with what the heck are some of these other contract service amounts? In the administration budget, it's $98,000, $93,000, which is comparable to what you had, which you apparently spent during the fiscal year ended middle of last week. It says contract engineering. I assume that we've contracted with an engineer to do the engineer reviewing things that you need to have done. Is that right?
Yes, this is for primarily traffic engineering.
Okay, great.
So
I remember you talking about it.
yeah, traffic engineering, it gives me assistance in construction inspection, in construction management. it's a place where I can go and hire a structural engineer on a question.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to do that. The next two items, the one is called other contract services. That's for things that we lease for the department. Like each of my areas have a copy machine and we lease it. And that's effectively a contract. And then IT is what we pay our IT vendor to manage our computer system that we have for the department.
And that has now been charged directly to the departments. I notice it appears in all the departments.
Yes, we now pay for it.
So Marcella no longer gets stuck with that bill. Not directly, anyway.
Not directly, no.
The other, in the sewer budget, would you mind telling me what NPDES means?
Certainly. NPDES means the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. It's a federal acronym, and it's the implementation of the Clean Water Act, which is a federal law, which compels all of us to, before we discharge any water, whether it's drinking water, wastewater, or stormwater into an open body of water, we need to treat it in some fashion or another. So contract services for that particular thing is a professional firm that we hire to assist us in this specialty field, making sure that we stay in compliance, that we file all the numerous reports, and that we also do some stormwater quality monitoring with that. We occasionally have to engage the city's law firm or an outside legal consultant to help us with some of these water quality items. And then the next one down where it says other contract services, that primarily is street sweeping. Yes.
The street sweeper.
It is a street sweeper, yes.
How about the line above it, the big number?
No, the 163,800, that's primarily street sweeping.
Well, the 163 is the street sweeper.
Yes.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And let's see. You can tell I printed all this stuff out and went through it.
I'm sorry, Chair Bug. I was looking at the wrong number here. Here. Okay, the 135, the 135,000 is our contracted street sweeping.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the 163,800
Yeah.
is our annual sewer cleaning.
That's the actual cleaning, the equipment.
That's the cleaning of the sewer mains. We clean half each year.
Right.
So, and we have a multi-year contract with the vendor, and that amount represents the inflationary, contractual inflationary amount that they could get based on a multi-year contract.
Great.
I apologize. I was looking at the wrong line.
That's okay. On the next page on streets, about $83,000.
Other contract services is, let's see. That is for when we have to rent equipment. And the other, we also on occasion have to hire small contractors to help us out on things. So that's where that dollar amount is.
Okay, that's just periodic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then
I noticed a Public Safety Commission on there. Is that,
Yes, that is when you have a meeting and you say, you know, Mr. Throne, that's a really great idea. Maybe you should go put up 3 or 4 signs use that fund to implement some of the commission's small projects that I can authorize.
Okay, I recall you saying that during meetings. Okay. All right.
So we're on the hook for 10 Gs.
Well,
Yes.
I'm on the hook for spending it, or else I have to explain why I didn't do anything with it. I'm really on the hook.
And then I think the last one's in grounds, which has the almost $249,000 number.
Tree trimming.
Tree trimming.
Yeah.
That's what's the name of that firm? Or is that
We currently contract with Mariposa Landscaping,
right?
and I believe they do landscaping for the Disneyland Resort,
Yeah.
the street
Great.
meeting. Yeah.
And the building maintenance, I assume, must be some kind of outside maintenance firm because you don't have any labor in that department.
For building maintenance,
It's other contract service, 107,000.
that's for all the things we have to hire out for contractors, or for plumbers, for HVAC, for roofing repairs, and that's where that falls.
Oh. Hmm.
And
Thank you.
that is across all the departments and all the buildings.
Yeah.
So if I do work in either of the chief's buildings, that's a building repair, and I have to hire an electrician,
Mhm.
that's where that comes from. They do not directly pay for that.
Well, I apologize for so many questions, but since the council has asked us to be aware of the budget and expects us to review with you from time to time, I just want to be sure I knew what the line items meant, so that if there are, when we do see reports versus budget, I think we could understand them a little better. I apologize for taking so much time. You were going to talk about the capital budget, or you wanted to do that, or Chair Chang?
Yeah, let's see. Is there any questions on this part of the Michael's budget before we move on to capital?
The least I can do is move that we receive and file.
Okay. Any second? I guess I can second, right? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, Jennifer, before we move on, just a typo on item 9. I believe you want to file the Parks and Public Works budget.
Hi, Chair.
Is
I think you're
Instead of the, pardon?
draft agenda. The final
What?
agenda only had 7 items.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So we're done. We're on item 10. No. Okay. Director Throne, capital plan. Okay, thanks.
Right. So the way that the capital program was established, and we've been doing this for 3 years now, is I ask each of the department heads, which includes the 2 chiefs, to put together a list of things they want to buy that cost over a certain amount of money, or takes 2 people to carry, or lasts more than a year. And then what sort of improvements are they looking for their facilities? I go through a process not only with the chiefs, but with the other department heads. We put together a big list. The list is vetted by the city manager and the finance director in typical fashion, as we would have in March. We would have brought the public safety and the public works component of the equipment and capital improvement recommendations to you, and to have you actually look at each one like you did last year, and to weigh in on it. And then after that, that goes to council for their deliberation and ultimately inclusion into their municipal budget. The capital budget is a different bucket of money than the operating fund. So the capital budget receives funding from outside sources, for instance, grant funding or donations. And then it also, on an annual basis, the council toward the end of the fiscal year, looks at its finances And if there is a certain amount of excess revenue beyond what the city had anticipated, the council can and sometimes does transfer that money into the capital improvement fund, basically as a place to hold that money so that capital improvements or capital equipment purchases can be made. They did that this year. Earlier this year, they transferred $5 million. At no time did they jeopardize their reserves. They still have the reserves that they have imposed on the city. And actually, as we got closer to the end of the fiscal year, they actually have more reserves than I believe than what their mandate or what their minimum amount is. So that shows some good stewardship there and some good economy. So we take the requests from the chiefs. We look at how does that balance out from not only a fiscal standpoint, but also from a practical standpoint. I mean, can you really spend this much money on buying things or building things? Building things is more at my end of the spectrum. Each chief put in their request for equipment and vehicles to replace. And you'll see those on your agenda item on page 7-30. In all, the library will be getting a little bit of equipment. Actually, the library is not receiving anything this year. Public Works is picking up a tire changing machine, for instance. The fire department will be replacing one of their other rescue ambulance and doing some radios. And each of the chiefs can go into detail on that. The big success that Chief Uncontro and I are pretty pleased about is the replacement of 6 patrol cars and the acquisition of some speed trailers for his traffic enforcement efforts, as well as 2 motor units. And we're very excited about that. It's been a long time coming. And I think it'll go a long way on my end of things to help out with maintenance and for Chief Uncontro to keep his officers where they need to be, which is not standing down there talking to the shop guys about, well, I blew out another engine on this thing. Can you fix it tomorrow? So that is what the capital equipment portion is. And of course, the capital construction, the capital improvement are those projects that many of them are ongoing. Last year, I asked the council to enter into some multi-year contracts, and we are still proceeding ahead with a solid mile of sidewalk replacement this year. After we get done with the 59 streets we're working on right now, I'm looking at doing at least 59, if not more streets this fiscal year. We have some small storm drain projects, some small wastewater projects, and we'll be starting our triennial striping project where we stripe 1/3 of the town each year. And that's really pretty much those projects also go through a similar vetting process that I described that equipment does with department heads. And that really, in summary, is what our capital program looks like for this coming year. We also look at a 5-year lookout. I did not include all of that information. And that's really sort of our suspense file for those projects that are not quite ready yet, or that we anticipate in 3 to 5 years, this improvement will need to be made. And so we start just putting out there as a placeholder, we may need to access this amount of appropriation in 5 years. And each year we look at it. If a project can still stay out there because it's not critical or it's not become urgent, it stays out at the end, out of the outer regions of the program. And then other work just moves year to year. Chief Rueda is very good about moving his equipment needs forward each year. And he's totally on top of it, which is why you're seeing a rescue ambulance replacement, because his rig is 10 years old and it's time for it to be used by someone else, and that we get a good replacement for it. And that concludes for the overall summary of the capital program this year.
Thank you, Director Throne. Any comments on the capital expenditure plan?
It's just a quick question. So this is the actual budget that the council did approve?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Excellent. May I ask one other question?
Go ahead.
On the capital improvement projects budget, under right-of-way projects, the last line item, it's called the Huntington Drive Mission Street Beautification Project, which I understand from attending council meetings, the plan is to focus first on Mission this year and Huntington Drive next year. Is that a project that is going to be carried out jointly by Director Throne's organization and with input, or how is that working with, where's the direction coming from? Is that coming from building and planning, or is there a task force set up?
That will be coming out of Director Cervantes' shop. He's the lead on that, and I'm his primary consultant and resource, because when he gets closer to physically doing something, that's where my input will be very instrumental in providing him basically what we do on a daily basis, which is project management. It's actually sort of very similar to Chief Rueda's need to replace his apparatus doors. He identified the need. They did a huge amount of research, and then we were able to help out to get the project out to bid, and then later this month start to deliver construction. So it will be a very similar sort of process with this beautification project, this City Council priority initiative. It's starting on Mission Street.
Thank you. I move we accept and file.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Al and Jeff. Let's see. So before we adjourn, did we accept and file everything on the agenda? Did we, the department reports, did we recommend receive and file? Okay. And then the file, pardon me? And then did we receive and file the San Marino Fire Department annual report?
No, we did not receive and file the department reports or the annual report.
Okay, so why don't we do that before we adjourn?
Do that.
Who was speaking? Was that Al and Jeff?
Well,
Okay, great. Okay, anything else we need to talk about? Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. Our next meeting will be August 3rd, Monday at same time. I presume it'll probably be a Zoom meeting again. And other than that, no other questions. Well, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Be safe.
Be safe.
thank you, Chair.
Thank you.